After 20 years handling customer trust, the CMO said I lacked virality and replaced me. The notification sound from my phone cut through the morning silence like a scream. Twitter was exploding. Radon scandal was trending worldwide, and the screenshots flooding my timeline made my stomach drop. Influencers I'd never heard of were posting about our latest campaign, but not in the way Radon Technologies had hoped. The backlash was swift, brutal, and going viral in all the wrong ways. I set down my coffee and smiled grimly. Sometimes the internet has perfect timing. My name is Anthony Bisick, and for 20 years, I was the voice Radon Technologies customers trusted. I started in 2004, when the company was still figuring out what it meant to be a technology solutions provider in an increasingly connected world. Back then, Radon Technologies specialized in enterprise software, boring but essential tools that helped mid-sized companies manage everything from inventory to payroll. I wasn't hired as a marketing director initially. I was brought in as a customer service manager when our client satisfaction scores were abysmal and our retention rates were in free fall. Companies were dropping our software like it was infected with malware, and nobody could figure out why. Our technically superior products weren't gaining market traction. The answer was simple. Nobody trusted us. Our marketing was all specs and features. Our customer service was robotic and unresponsive, and our company culture treated clients like revenue streams rather than human beings. I changed that, one relationship at a time. I built our customer success program from scratch, training representatives to actually listen to client concerns instead of reading from scripts. I established our community forums where users could share solutions and best practices. Most importantly, I made sure that every piece of communication from Radon Technologies, whether it was a product announcement, a service update, or a response to criticism, was honest, helpful, and human. Over 2 decades, I watched Radon grow from a struggling software company to a trusted name in business technology. We expanded from basic enterprise tools to comprehensive digital transformation solutions, serving everyone from local restaurants to multinational corporations. Our client base grew from hundreds to hundreds of thousands, but we never lost the personal touch that set us apart. I pioneered what the industry now calls authentic engagement marketing, building genuine relationships with customers instead of just broadcasting messages at them. When social media emerged, I was among the first to recognize its potential for real customer connection rather than just advertising distribution. Our Twitter account became known for actually solving problems publicly. Our LinkedIn presence focused on sharing valuable insights rather than self-promotion, and our email newsletters were so useful that people forwarded them to colleagues. The trust we built translated directly to business success. Our customer lifetime value was 40% higher than industry average. Our referral rates were exceptional. When competitors tried to poach our clients with lower prices or flashier features, loyalty kept them with us. We weren't just a vendor, we were a partner. But trust building is slow, methodical work. It doesn't generate immediate viral moments or instant engagement spikes. It's the opposite of what modern marketing has become. Patient instead of urgent, relationship-focused instead of transaction-focused, authentic instead of performative. That disconnect between my approach and contemporary marketing trends became increasingly problematic as Radon grew larger and attracted executives from companies that measured success in likes, shares, and trending hashtags rather than customer satisfaction and retention rates. Everything changed when Jessica Torres joined as our new Chief Marketing Officer 8 months ago. She came from a consumer electronics startup that had achieved massive social media followings and viral marketing campaigns before ultimately failing when their products couldn't deliver on the hype. Our first strategy meeting should have been a clear warning of the philosophical clash ahead. "Anthony, I've been reviewing your engagement metrics," she said, scrolling through her tablet without making eye contact. "Your content performs well with existing customers, but we're not seeing viral potential. No breakout posts, no trending moments, no influencer amplification." "That's by design," I replied carefully. "Our audience consists of business decision-makers who value substance over spectacle. They share our content because it's useful, not because it's entertaining, but useful doesn't scale. She finally looked up, her expression impatient. We need to reach new audiences, create buzz, generate the kind of engagement that investors notice. Your approach is too conservative. I felt my jaw tighten. Conservative. We have a 93% customer satisfaction rate and an 87% retention rate. Our brand trust scores are among the highest in the industry. Trust scores don't trend on TikTok. She laughed, but it wasn't friendly. We need to think bigger, bolder. We need campaigns that people can't ignore. The meeting ended with her assigning me to work with her new digital engagement strategist, a 24-year-old named Kyle, who'd built his reputation managing OnlyFans accounts and cryptocurrency pump schemes. His first presentation was a masterclass in everything I'd spent 20 years avoiding. The old model is dead, Kyle announced, clicking through slides filled with engagement statistics and virality metrics. Nobody cares about authenticity anymore. They want excitement, controversy, surprise. We need to create moments that force people to have opinions. He proposed campaigns built around manufactured drama, artificial scarcity, and what he called strategic controversy. Instead of educational content about digital transformation, he wanted memes about workplace culture. Instead of case studies showcasing client success, he wanted celebrity endorsements from tech influencers who'd never used our products. When I raised concerns about alienating our existing customer base, Kyle dismissed them with a wave. Existing customers are already converted. We need to worry about acquisition, not retention, and acquisition requires disruption. Over the following months, Jessica systematically undermined every relationship-building initiative I'd developed. Community forums were redesigned to prioritize viral content over helpful solutions. Customer service training shifted from problem-solving to engagement optimization. Our social media presence became increasingly focused on trending topics rather than industry expertise. The breaking point came during our quarterly board presentation. I'd prepared a detailed analysis of customer feedback trends, showing how our recent marketing pivots were creating confusion and concern among long-term clients. Jessica interrupted me, 3 slides in. Anthony, this is exactly the problem. You're focused on limitations instead of opportunities. We need to be asking how we can amplify our reach, not how our reach affects existing relationships. I'm showing you how marketing affects customer trust, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Trust is our competitive advantage. It's what differentiates us from. Trust is what old companies talk about when they can't generate excitement. She gestured dismissively. We're not old, we're not boring, we need marketing that reflects that. We're a B2B software company serving risk-averse business customers, I replied. Excitement isn't what they're looking for. Maybe that's because you've never given them anything to be excited about. That phrase echoed in my head for weeks. The implication was clear. 20 years of building genuine customer relationships was somehow a failure of imagination rather than a strategic choice. 3 weeks later, Jessica called me into her office for the final time. Anthony, you've had a great run here, but we're moving in a different direction. We need marketing leadership that understands viral engagement and influencer partnerships. Frankly, you lack virality. We'll use influencers now. Influencers? I couldn't hide my disbelief. Jessica, our customers are CFOs and IT directors. They don't follow influencers. They follow industry analysts and peer recommendations. She smiled that Silicon Valley smile. That's old thinking. Everyone follows influencers now. Kyle will be taking over customer communications and community management. We'll handle the transition. I walked away in silence, but I knew exactly what would happen next. Jessica and Kyle were about to learn the difference between viral engagement and sustainable business relationships. I should have taken my severance and moved on to one of the dozen companies that had been trying to recruit me for years. At 47, I had enough industry credibility to land a senior position anywhere. But something about Jessica's dismissive attitude toward customer trust gnawed at me. Radon Technologies wasn't just another job. It was 20 years of my professional life. And more importantly, it represented relationships with thousands of business customers who depended on us. I started monitoring Radon's social media presence, and marketing campaigns from the outside. What I saw confirmed my worst fears. Kyle's strategic disruption approach was systematically alienating the customer base I'd spent 2 decades building. Their first major campaign was a TikTok partnership with 3 tech influencers who had millions of followers but zero enterprise software experience. The influencers created videos about digital transformation hacks that completely misunderstood how business software actually worked. Worse, they made claims about Radon's capabilities that weren't technically accurate. I started receiving calls from former colleagues and industry contacts. The first came from David Park, our former head of customer success, who'd been laid off during Jessica's restructuring. "Anthony, have you seen what they're doing? They just posted a video claiming our inventory management system can predict market trends." "That's not what it does. That's never been what it does." I saw it. "Did anyone from product review that content before it went live?" "There is no review process anymore. Kyle says review processes kill spontaneity. Everything gets posted immediately for maximum viral potential." My next call was from Lisa Martinez, a longtime client who ran IT operations for a regional bank. We'd worked together for 12 years, and she'd always been one of our strongest advocates. "Anthony, I need to ask you something, and I hope you'll be straight with me. Is Radon changing directions? Because their recent marketing doesn't sound like the company I've been recommending to colleagues." "What do you mean?" "The influencer content, the memes about workplace culture, the claims about AI capabilities we've never discussed. It feels like they're trying to be something they're not." This was exactly what I'd feared. Our most loyal customers were questioning whether Radon was still the reliable, trustworthy partner they'd come to depend on. Jessica's viral marketing strategy was creating cognitive dissonance between the company our customers knew and the brand image Kyle was trying to create. I reached out to Margaret Wu, a senior analyst at Tech Insight Research, who'd been covering our industry for 15 years. Her assessment was blunt. "Anthony, what's happening at Radon is concerning from a market perspective. They're creating brand confusion at exactly the wrong time. The enterprise software market is becoming increasingly competitive, and trust is more important than ever. Companies that lose customer confidence don't usually get it back." "What are you hearing from other clients?" Mixed signals. Excitement from younger decision-makers who like the social media presence, confusion from senior executives who don't understand why their software vendor is making TikTok videos, and concern from security-conscious organizations about whether this represents a fundamental change in company culture. The market research confirmed what I already suspected. Jessica's influencer strategy was generating impressive engagement metrics, millions of views, thousands of shares, trending hashtags. But it wasn't translating to business results. Worse, it was actively damaging relationships with existing customers who'd chosen Radon specifically because we weren't flashy or trendy. But it was my conversation with Janet Kim, a former team member who'd stayed at Radon, that revealed the full scope of the disaster unfolding. "Anthony, you need to know what's really happening here. Kyle's influencer campaigns are generating leads, but they're completely wrong leads. We're getting inquiries from startups and small businesses who think we're a consumer app. Meanwhile, our enterprise clients are asking whether we're still focused on their needs." "What's Jessica saying about the disconnect?" "She says it's temporary adjustment issues, that we need to weather the transition period while new audiences discover us." "But Anthony, the new audiences can't afford our products, and our existing audiences are starting to look elsewhere." This was the nightmare scenario I'd tried to prevent. Jessica's viral marketing strategy wasn't just failing to acquire the right new customers, it was actively driving away the valuable customers we already had. I needed to understand the full extent of the damage, but I had to be careful. My severance package included a non-compete clause that prevented me from working with Radon's direct competitors, and a non-disparagement agreement that limited what I could say publicly about the company. My first ally was unexpected. Kevin Walsh, the social media manager who'd been reporting to me before Jessica's arrival. He'd been reassigned to Kyle's team but was clearly uncomfortable with the new direction. "Mr. Bisick, can we talk? Off the record." We met at a coffee shop in Princeton, far from Radon's Morristown headquarters. "Kevin, what's really happening?" "With customer feedback, Are you getting complaints about the influencer campaigns? He looked around nervously before answering. It's bad. Really bad. Our customer service ticket volume has increased by 40%, and most of the new tickets are people asking why we're promoting features that don't exist or questioning whether we're still a serious business software company. What's Kyle's response to the complaints? He says customer complaints are just resistance to change, that we need to push through the transition period until existing customers adapt to our new brand identity. This was worse than I'd imagined. Kyle wasn't just ignoring customer feedback, he was treating it as an obstacle to overcome rather than valuable intelligence about market reception. Kevin slid a folder across the table. These are screenshots of customer comments on our social media posts. Kyle deletes negative feedback immediately, but I've been documenting it. Reading through the comments was heartbreaking. Long-term customers expressing confusion, disappointment and concern about Radon's direction. Business executives questioning whether we were still focused on enterprise solutions. IT directors asking whether our platform was becoming less secure or reliable. Most damaging were the comments from industry peers, analysts, consultants, and business leaders who'd previously recommended Radon to colleagues. Their criticism wasn't just about specific campaigns. It was about the fundamental mismatch between our viral marketing strategy and our actual business model. My next conversation was with Patricia Chen, the head of product development, who'd worked with me on countless customer-driven feature improvements. Over the years, Anthony, I'm glad you called. I've been wanting to talk to someone who understands what's happening here. Jessica's marketing promises are creating product development nightmares. What do you mean? The influencer campaigns are claiming we have capabilities we don't have. AI-powered analytics, predictive market modeling, automated compliance management, features that would take years to develop properly. Kyle says we can iterate toward the promises, but that's not how enterprise software works. Are you being pressured to rush features to market? Worse. We're being asked to create demo versions of promised features for social media content, even though the actual products aren't ready for production use. It's like we're building a marketing facade instead of real software. This revelation was stunning. Jessica and Kyle weren't just over-promising in their marketing, they were actively creating false demonstrations of non-existent capabilities. In the enterprise software industry, that kind of misrepresentation could trigger lawsuits and regulatory investigations. I reached out to my contact at the Better Business Bureau. While I couldn't file a formal complaint due to my non-disparagement agreement, I could ask hypothetical questions about marketing standards for B2B software companies. Anthony, hypothetically speaking, if a software company was demonstrating features that weren't actually available to customers, that would be false advertising. If those demonstrations were being used to acquire business contracts under false pretenses, that could be fraud. The legal implications were serious, but the business implications were worse. Enterprise software customers don't forgive companies that misrepresent capabilities. Trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild in the B2B market. My final attempt to intervene came through an intermediary. Margaret Wu from Tech Insight Research called me directly. Anthony, I'm working on an industry report about marketing trends in enterprise software. Jessica agreed to an interview, and I thought you should know what she's saying about customer feedback. What kind of things? She's claiming that customer complaints about the new marketing direction are just resistance to innovation. That Radon is disrupting traditional B2B communication patterns, and that negative feedback is expected during market education periods. Market education periods? Her words, not mine. She seems to believe that business customers need to be taught to appreciate viral marketing content, rather than companies needing to understand their customers' communication preferences. This was the final piece of evidence I needed. Jessica wasn't just misreading customer feedback, she was fundamentally misunderstanding the B2B market. She was trying to apply B2C marketing strategies to enterprise software customers, and she was interpreting the inevitable rejection as a sign that customers needed education rather than that her strategy was wrong. I knew exactly what would happen. Next, the disconnect between Jessica's viral marketing and customer expectations would eventually create a crisis that no amount of influencer engagement could solve. The crisis arrived faster than even I had anticipated. 6 months after my departure, Radon's influencer marketing strategy culminated in what Kyle called their breakthrough campaign, a partnership with a controversial tech personality named Brandon Cross, who had built his following by making inflammatory statements about workplace culture and corporate responsibility. Brandon's content for Radon was exactly what I'd feared: edgy, attention-grabbing, and completely tone-deaf to our customer base. His videos mocked boring business software, while promoting Radon as the rebellious choice for companies ready to disrupt themselves. He made jokes about compliance regulations, suggested that traditional security protocols were paranoia, and claimed that Radon's software could help companies break free from corporate constraints. The content went viral immediately, generating millions of views across TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. Kyle was ecstatic about the engagement metrics. Jessica celebrated the campaign as proof that B2B marketing could achieve consumer-level viral success. They celebrated for exactly 48 hours. The backlash started with a single LinkedIn post from Marcus Thompson, the CTO of a Fortune 500 manufacturing company that had been using Radon's software for 8 years. His post was measured, professional, and devastating. After nearly a decade as a satisfied Radon Technologies customer, I'm concerned about their recent marketing direction. Software that handles sensitive business data shouldn't be promoted. Through content that mocks compliance and security protocols, we need vendors who understand the responsibility that comes with managing enterprise systems. That post was shared 15,000 times in the first day. It triggered a cascade of similar responses from other business leaders, industry analysts, and security professionals. The hashtag Radon scandal began trending, but not in the way Jessica had hoped. The criticism wasn't just about Brandon's specific content, it was about what his partnership revealed about Radon's values and priorities. Customers weren't angry about a single campaign. They were questioning whether Radon still understood their needs. Kevin called me the day after the backlash began. "Mr. Bisick, it's chaos here. Customer service is overwhelmed with complaints and cancellation requests. 3 major clients have already terminated their contracts, and at least a dozen more are demanding meetings to discuss their concerns." What's Jessica's response? She's blaming the customers. She says they're overreacting to a single campaign and that the controversy will blow over. Kyle is talking about doubling down with even edgier content to reclaim the narrative. This was exactly the wrong response. Instead of acknowledging the disconnect between their marketing and customer expectations, they were treating legitimate business concerns as public relations problems to be managed rather than relationship issues to be addressed. The situation deteriorated rapidly. Industry publications began covering the story, framing it as a cautionary tale about the risks of applying consumer marketing strategies to B2B companies. Competitors started reaching out to disaffected Radon customers, offering special migration packages and highlighting their own commitment to traditional business values. Most damaging was the response from the security and compliance community. Several prominent cybersecurity experts published articles questioning whether companies that promoted breaking free from corporate constraints could be trusted with sensitive data. Regulatory consultants began advising clients to reconsider their relationships with vendors whose marketing suggested casual attitudes toward compliance requirements. I watched the disaster unfold from the outside, feeling both vindicated and heartsick. I'd spent 20 years building Radon's reputation, and Jessica had destroyed it in 6 months. The viral success Kyle had achieved was real. The Brandon Cross campaign had generated more social media engagement than all of my content combined. But that engagement was destroying the customer relationships that actually mattered. The final blow came from an unexpected source. The Federal Trade Commission announced an investigation into misleading marketing practices in the enterprise software industry, specifically citing concerns about companies that promoted capabilities their products didn't actually possess. While Radon wasn't named directly, Industry observers noted that the investigation's focus areas precisely matched the complaints that had emerged during the Rangs radon scandal controversy. Jessica's viral marketing strategy hadn't just damaged customer relationships, it had potentially triggered regulatory scrutiny that could affect the entire company's future. The turning point came through a conversation with someone I'd never expected to hear from again. Janet Kim, my former team member, who'd stayed at Radon through the Jessica transition. "Anthony, I need to tell you something, but you can't let anyone know we talked. I'm putting together documentation for a potential wrongful termination case, and I think you should know what I've found." "What kind of documentation?" "Email chains between Jessica and Kyle, discussing how to eliminate legacy mindsets from the marketing department. They specifically targeted employees who had long customer relationships, saying those relationships created resistance to innovation. This wasn't just about marketing strategy, it was about deliberate destruction of institutional knowledge. Jessica hadn't just fired me because she thought I lacked virality. She'd systematically eliminated anyone who understood our customer base well enough to challenge her influencer marketing approach. "Janet, there's more. Remember the customer advisory board you established? Jessica disbanded it 3 weeks after you left. She said customer input was limiting our creative potential and that advisory boards created design-by-committee problems. The customer advisory board had been one of my proudest achievements, a formal group of long-term clients who provided feedback on product development and marketing initiatives. These weren't just customers, they were strategic partners who'd helped shape Radon's evolution over 2 decades. Jessica had eliminated them because their advice would have prevented exactly the kind of campaign that triggered the Radon scandal. The internal documents show that Jessica knew the Brandon Cross campaign would be controversial," Janet continued. Kyle's presentation specifically mentioned that the content would challenge customer assumptions and force market conversations. They expected backlash. They just thought it would generate more positive attention than negative. This revelation changed everything. The campaign wasn't a mistake or miscalculation. It was a deliberate strategy based on the assumption that controversy would be more valuable than customer satisfaction. Jessica and Kyle had knowingly risked customer relationships for viral engagement metrics. "Janet, do you have documentation of customer retention numbers since the campaign launched?" "That's the worst part. We've lost 18% of our enterprise customers in 6 months. Revenue from existing clients is down 32%. But Jessica is presenting these numbers to the board as transition costs while highlighting the social media engagement metrics and lead generation numbers. The financial impact was even worse than I'd imagined. Jessica was essentially trading profitable long-term customers for unprofitable short-term leads, but presenting the exchange as a success story because the social media metrics looked impressive. Contacted Margaret Wu one more time. Margaret, hypothetically, if a company was losing established customers while gaining unqualified leads, and management was presenting that as a successful transition, what would industry analysts typically recommend? Hypothetically, that company would be in serious trouble. Enterprise software success depends on customer lifetime value, not acquisition volume. If leadership doesn't understand that distinction, they're probably making other strategic errors as well. What kind of errors? Product development decisions based on marketing promises rather than customer needs. Pricing strategies based on virality rather than value delivery. Resource allocation focused on engagement metrics rather than customer success metrics. The kind of errors that destroy established companies very quickly. I realized that Jessica's viral marketing strategy wasn't just damaging Radon's reputation, it was symptomatic of a fundamental misunderstanding of how enterprise software businesses actually work. She was optimizing for metrics that didn't correlate with sustainable success, while actively destroying the foundations that had made Radon profitable for 2 decades. The final piece of the puzzle came from an unexpected source, Kyle himself. 3 weeks after the Radon scandal reached its peak, he called me directly. "Mr. Bessick, I know this is weird, but I need advice. Jessica is blaming me for the campaign backlash, and I think she's going to fire me. but I just did what she asked me to do. Kyle, what exactly did she ask you to do? Create campaigns that would force people to talk about radon. Generate controversy that would break through the noise. She said traditional B2B marketing was invisible and that we needed content that people couldn't ignore. Did she specify that the attention should be positive? She said all attention was good attention as long as it generated engagement. That negative reactions were just as valuable as positive ones because they created brand awareness and market conversations. This conversation confirmed what I'd suspected. Jessica's strategy was based on consumer marketing principles that simply didn't apply to B2B relationships. In consumer markets, controversy can sometimes drive sales through curiosity and impulse purchases. In enterprise software, controversy destroys the trust that drives multi-year contracts and long-term partnerships. Kyle's documentation of Jessica's instructions would be crucial evidence if the board ever investigated the marketing department's role in Radon's customer retention crisis. The coordinated response began with a single phone call from Patricia Chen in product development. Anthony, the board is calling an emergency meeting about customer retention numbers. They finally realized that our social media success isn't translating to business success. Several board members have been contacted directly by major customers threatening to terminate contracts. What kind of threats? Specific and detailed. The manufacturing company that started the Radon scandal has formal termination proceedings underway. 3 other Fortune 500 clients have demanded meetings with senior leadership to address concerns about brand direction. The board is asking whether this is a temporary backlash or a fundamental business problem. I wasn't part of the board meeting, but industry contacts kept me informed about the outcome. The board had commissioned an independent review of marketing effectiveness, customer satisfaction trends, and competitive positioning. The review would be conducted by Tech Insight Research, Margaret Wu's firm. Margaret called me the day after, receiving the assignment. Anthony, I need you to know that this review will be comprehensive and objective, but I also need you to know that Radon's situation is worse than even you probably realize. How much worse? Customer acquisition costs have increased by 240%, while customer lifetime value has decreased by 35%. The new leads from influencer campaigns have a conversion rate of less than 3%, compared to 47% for leads from traditional channels. Most critically, brand trust scores have dropped to levels typically associated with companies in crisis. The numbers told a story that no amount of viral engagement could hide. Jessica's marketing strategy had been an unmitigated business disaster. Even though it had achieved impressive social media metrics, the crisis deepened when the FTC investigation expanded to include specific examination of Radon's marketing claims. Federal regulators had received multiple complaints about the disconnect between promotional content and actual product capabilities. The investigation focused on whether Radon's influencer partnerships constituted false advertising under federal trade regulations. Jessica's response to the regulatory scrutiny was characteristically tone-deaf. Instead of cooperating with the investigation and demonstrating good faith efforts to address legitimate concerns, she hired a crisis management firm that specialized in reputation recovery through narrative control. The crisis management strategy backfired spectacularly. Instead of acknowledging mistakes and demonstrating commitment to customer relationships, Radon began pushing back against criticism through coordinated social media responses and influencer partnerships designed to reframe the conversation. The pushback strategy convinced both customers and regulators that Radon's problems weren't isolated marketing mistakes, but systematic issues with corporate leadership and values. Major clients began accelerating their contract terminations, and the FTC investigation expanded to include examination of broader business practices. The moment that defined the entire crisis came during Jessica's interview with TechCrunch. When asked about customer complaints regarding the Brandon Cross campaign, she responded, "We're not going to let legacy thinking limit our innovation. Sometimes disruption requires challenging comfortable assumptions, even when that makes some people uncomfortable." That quote appeared in every subsequent article about Radon's crisis. It perfectly captured the arrogance and customer disconnection that had led to the company's downfall. The board's response was swift and decisive. Jessica was terminated 4 days after the TechCrunch interview. Kyle was fired the same day. The crisis management firm was dismissed, and Radon issued a public apology acknowledging that recent marketing campaigns had not reflected the company's values or commitment to customer relationships. But the damage was done. By the time new leadership took over, Radon had lost nearly 30% of its enterprise customers and faced ongoing regulatory investigation that would take months to resolve. The Radon Technologies scandal became a case study in business, schools and marketing conferences. Jessica's attempt to apply viral consumer marketing strategies to enterprise software demonstrated the fundamental differences between B2C and B2B relationship building. The company's recovery took 18 months and required complete restructuring of both marketing and product development. I was offered my old position back, along with a promotion to Chief Customer Officer and a board seat. I accepted the role, but negotiated significant changes to how marketing decisions would be made. All major campaigns now require approval from a reconstituted customer advisory board, and social media engagement metrics are balanced against customer satisfaction and retention measurements. Jessica Torres disappeared from the technology industry entirely. Her LinkedIn profile was deleted, and she stopped posting on all social media platforms. Industry sources suggest she moved to a different field, though no one seems to know where. Kyle returned to influencer marketing, but focuses on consumer brands rather than B2B companies. The Federal Trade Commission investigation resulted in new guidelines for software industry marketing, specifically addressing the use of influencer, partnerships and viral content strategies in enterprise markets. The Radon guidelines require clear disclosure when promotional content doesn't reflect actual product capabilities, and establish penalties for companies that use social media engagement to misrepresent business relationships. I spent my first year back at Radon rebuilding the customer relationships that Jessica's campaigns had damaged. It was painstaking work, individual conversations, customized solutions, and demonstrable commitment to the values that had originally made customers trust us. Some relationships were permanently damaged, but most were salvageable once customers saw authentic efforts to return to our original customer-focused approach. Kevin Walsh became my deputy and now heads our social media strategy. His approach is methodical and relationship-focused, exactly the opposite of Kyle's viral optimization tactics. Our engagement numbers are lower than during the Jessica era, but our customer satisfaction scores have returned to historical highs. The real victory wasn't Jessica's termination or the restoration of traditional marketing approaches. It was the systematic rebuilding of trust with thousands of business customers who had chosen Radon because we understood their needs and priorities. That trust can't be measured in viral metrics or engagement rates, but it translates directly to sustainable revenue and long-term partnerships. I'm 51 now, and I've learned that lacking virality is often the highest compliment a B2B marketer can receive. Viral content captures attention momentarily, but trusted relationships sustain businesses permanently. Sometimes the most important marketing metric isn't how many people are talking about you, but whether the right people still trust you. The influencer campaign did go viral, exactly as Jessica had promised. But viral success without customer trust is just expensive noise. When that noise triggered a boycott that destroyed customer relationships and attracted regulatory scrutiny, Jessica stopped posting entirely. Sometimes silence is the loudest admission of failure.